Hello, and thank you for joining us on our journey of 1,000 pages. I'm your host, Anty, with my co-host, Christina.
Hello there. This month, we read a comic book, which I'm sure you know what a comic book is, but just in case any of you are unfamiliar, it is a publication consisting of sequential art, typically arranged in panels that tells a story or series of stories and usually has word bubbles for everybody's thoughts and words. Started in the 1930s, and at this point, it's most famous for superhero narratives, but it can really be any genre. This month, we read Moon Knight.
Moon Knight, written by Jeff Lemire, drawn? Or what is that? I don't know.
Illustrated?
Illustrated by Greg Smallwood and colored by Jordi Belair. It is the story of Mark Spector, a mercenary who, out on a mission in the Egyptian wilderness, dies and is brought to life by Khonshu to be his eternal warrior, the Moon Knight. We follow Mark Spector as he wakes up in an insane asylum and is discovering this about himself and is learning about his other personalities that may be inside his body.
Mm-hmm. It's a trip.
It is a great time. Yes, that is kind of the story of this comic book. What we read is issues 1 through 14 of the specific run that was written by and colored and artisted by the people I said earlier. Not going through all of it. There's a lot of credits on comic books.
So first up, since it is a comic book, we want to talk about the art style.
Yeah, it's very artistful. I have no words today. I am so sorry.
It's very artistic.
Yes, that one.
You would hope so with it being a comic book.
Yeah, there's a little bit of art. There's one art.
There's a lot of bit of art.
There is, entirely, mostly.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that you brought up, because you started reading this before I did.
I did, yes.
You were very excited by some bubbles on a page. I'm calling them bubbles.
They're not bubbles. They're kind of bubbles.
It is unique. They play with a lot of styles for the panels in this comic book, because if you've ever read a comic book, the most traditional format is basically squares that are in sets, 3-4 squares across, and you read it like you would a normal book, and that's it.
Right.
There's the whole scene and then little word bubbles within those little squares or rectangles or whatever. But in this book, the artists have been incredibly creative. One of the first pages that really jumped out at me is the one that, again, I'm calling them bubbles because it's a whole bunch of little circular. It's a full page illustration of a fight. Mm-hmm. And instead of having the fight take place over several panels, there's this really cool one page with a whole bunch of smaller circles set clustered in the middle that show specific expressions on someone's face or the impact of a fist or whatever. Like a whole bunch of little screenshots placed together within the whole of, oh, there's a fight happening.
And it's, with that one in particular, I think it's really interesting how even when a lot of these comic books play with the shape of their panels, they are still in that very easily readable format because you want the reader to be able to read it.
Yes, there was never a single frame where I was questioning where my eye was supposed to go next. Right. It was always very clear.
Well, even with that scene where if you just glance at the page, it does seem very chaotic, but it is still very readable. But those bubbles do not seem to be in any particular order, which I think conveys the chaos of that fight scene in particular.
Yes.
Very well and in a super interesting way. I know there's a few other moments where the shape of the panel is like an exclamation point, which then on the next page leads into a big action moment.
Which I did not even pick up on the exclamation point thing. You mentioned it, and I was immediately looking in the word bubbles and going, oh, is there a really emphatic speech in this section? No,
it was literally the shape of the panels on the page created the exclamation point. It's really cool.
Which is very cool. The one that you just showed me as an example has a series of panels, rectangular, that are getting smaller, and then it goes down, and the dot at the bottom of the exclamation point is his eyes.
Yeah.
Just his eyes.
Like with the cowl. And it's really a lot done in this comic book with the paneling. is done so interesting and in a way that conveys emotions and feelings very similar to a movie. I mean, obviously it's a visual medium. Yeah, there's so many examples I could go through. Like, I know the one I just mentioned to you right before we started recording as I was flipping through it is they use negative space a lot, where there's one moment where there's 4 quote-unquote panels, but 2 of the panels are a blank space with just a few lines that are basically Mark's clothing, and it's his white clothing that is conveyed by just a few lines in this negative space.
Yeah.
Where normally in a comic book they would put in a full panel and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, at the very least it would be outlined.
Yes.
That is a panel. And like you said, there's a lot of emotion and action conveyed in these panels, to the point that it felt, in many spaces to me, it felt like I was watching a movie. Like, if this had been shot on film, that's kind of how it was rolling in my head.
Which is fantastic, like incredibly well done by the artists. Which I'm sure the artist and the writer worked together. I don't know how comic books are made. I don't know what I'm saying.
I did read the credits. They worked on this for 2 or 3 years.
Oh, dang.
Yes, and one of them, I believe it was the artist, was offered this project and had never read any Moon Knight, knew nothing about the character.
That's kind of sick. Not only just with the shape of the paneling conveying emotions, but because Moon Knight, this character, he is a superhero who has multiple identities. He doesn't just have his Bruce Wayne. He has his Mark Spector and his Jake Lockley and his Stephen Grant, all different secret identities that have a personality in them. The fun thing that I think this book does, and you've seen this in movies too, where basically shifting from one perspective to another, it completely changes the art style and the narrative style of the comic book itself. Whereas with Mark Spector, you get this very gritty, you're in this insane asylum, everything, there's a lot of that playing with negative space, with a lot of whites used. Then it shifts to Jake Lockley, and it then becomes this very dark color palette where uses a lot of shadows, kind of like an old...
It feels very neo-noir.
What's the detective with the watch? You know who I'm talking about. Old-timey detective, comic book, comic strip with the watch. He had the video watch. You know who I'm talking about. You know the name. Do not look at me like I'm crazy.
It is escaping me.
If you know the name of the old-timey detective guy with the video watch... put it down in the comments. I want to know. I can't remember, and you are now my Google. Because Google is overridden with AI slop, I have no choice but to rely on the comments.
Yes, it has a very neo-noir feel with, like you said, it plays with the shadows. The color palette feels like everything is lit with neon lights. Not like LED lights, but the colorful neon lights that would be on a buildings in a big city in like a seedy area of town.
And even in those two, the narration changes because whereas you just go from kind of standard comic book, when you switch to those Jake Lockley moments, he has this inner monologue like those noir detectives.
Yes.
You know, with the whole, she walked in and she was all lit. I don't know. I hate myself now. I regret that.
But it is exactly that, which is interesting. And then you switch to Stephen Grant. How would you describe that style?
Stephen Grant's style is like the most generic Marvel Comics style. And I don't want to say that offensively because there are separate artists who worked on those sections. But it fits with that Stephen Grant character.
It feels very clean and shiny.
Yeah.
And the color palette to me felt more... like a muted Barbie movie.
Sure.
There was a lot more pink and pastel.
Right.
Okay, I would also like to point out the way Khonshu is illustrated, because I don't know how to describe the art style other than it feels kind of pen and ink. And there's a lot of little scribbles around his character.
Sure.
Which was just really interesting to me.
If you don't know what Khonshu looks like, he has a white suit and a bird skull for a head. And I don't think the bird skull's attached. I think it's just floating
No, it's
there.
floating above where his neck should be.
It's pretty sick. I'm a big fan of the design.
I think it's interesting. Reading this reminded me of watching the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
In the way that the spider people from different multiverse, they all are illustrated very differently to match the worlds that they come from. That's the only other time I've seen something like this done, and it's cool.
Yeah. I think it's also interesting that two examples of kind of the same artistic style there, or at least shifting artistic style, are two very different takes on that. Whereas like in Spider-Verse, it's this because they're all from different universes.
Yes.
And etc. Whereas in Moon Knight, it's because they're all different perceptions of his reality. If this is one person inside this body, I don't know. Are they all different? Are they all the same guy?
I still don't know.
Exactly.
I don't like it.
I know you don't like it. It's great. I love it. I don't love that you don't like it. Okay, I do kind of love that you don't like it.
Uh-huh. You got so much joy from the fact that we are both watching something with an unreliable narrator and now reading something with an unreliable narrator. Not
just because we're watching Legion, the Noah Hawley show.
The X-Men.
It's barely X-Men. It doesn't count.
They've got the X logo.
They do.
In the title.
I will say Professor X does show up.
Okay. Eventually. We're still in season 1.
Yes, we are. But not only with the unreliable narrator, but the unreliable reality as well, where things are shifting and changing, and you don't know if the thing you're seeing right now is the real reality. And you hate that.
So much.
Why?
I've been thinking about this because you asked me this question initially a day or two ago in preparation for recording. And I think it comes down to a couple things. One, I really like to know what is real. I like to know what is happening in the story. I don't care if people have an imaginary version, but I want to know as the audience, okay, but what is what really happened? I don't care what their perception is. They can have whatever, but I want to know. I want to be able to piece together a clear narrative from beginning to end with all of the plot points and go, I know what happened along the way. And so having a character who is experiencing different personalities that all have different perspectives and shifting from art style to art style with that is very hard and confusing because I would think that I had an understanding. At this age, he was diagnosed with this. Is that real? Is he insane? Or is this something else? So I didn't enjoy that.
Sure.
Because I felt like I was working overtime trying to trying to drill down and figure out what the real reality was behind all of these shifting storylines. But you said you did not experience it this way.
No. And I think that's pretty common with a lot of unreliable narrator stuff. I enjoy an unreliable narrator. I think especially if it's used for comedic purposes, it's fantastic. But specifically with this kind of tone genre of unreliable narrator, I guess, where it is specifically the realities are kind of shifting. Because I've been trying to think of it too, like what is it about that I really enjoy? And I think it's the exact opposite of what you hate about it.
Yeah.
Or it is what you hate about it. It's the lack of rules.
Yeah.
I really enjoy no, I don't have to worry about the rules are. If I assume things, it's just going to be wrong. Like, it can change at any moment, so I'm going to make of it what I can. I feel way more comfortable in the unknown and when there is unknown than I think most people.
I think that's fair. I think another good example of this is reading a fantasy novel with a magic system. I prefer when, in the course of the story, the magic system is explained and the rules are laid out for me so I understand how it's supposed to function and what the boundaries are, versus there's worlds where they don't explain all those rules in the magic system. It's just kind of, there's magic and things can happen.
Because here's that, like with stuff like that with the magic system, yes, I want clear thought out rules. which I guess there aren't clear thought out rules in Moon Knight, but it's different.
Okay.
I don't know why it's different. I can't explain it because I love it. I love when a main character is insane. I love when I don't know what I'm seeing is real because I'm seeing it from their perspective and the struggle of madness there.
See, I really was frustrated with Moon Knight as a character, too, because I don't like an unreliable narrator. I want to know that the character who is narrating to me is telling me the truth to the best of their ability.
He is. This is his truth.
But
this
not,
is what he
but
sees.
not in a way that I like.
But
Okay.
I don't like that truth.
Yes. Okay. I don't know.
Sure.
It's not, you're right. It's not that he is being dishonest.
Yeah.
It's that it's confusing. And I don't like that. I'm trying to think of an example of something that I have enjoyed that is an unreliable narrator. And I have one example. And that is Christopher Nolan's Memento. I love that movie. I think it is my favorite Christopher Nolan movie I have seen. And I have seen every movie that man has made for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know either.
If you have not seen that movie, premise is you have a guy with short-term memory loss, so he can't form new memories, or they don't last for more than a minute or two, and he is trying to solve the murder of his wife. Mm-hmm. And the film is the scenes are arranged there's a pattern to it, but it's non-linear.
Right,
it's non-linear. Let's just go with that.
The scenes are not shown in order.
Yes. And so you spend a lot of time following the main character through his reality and his understanding with the memory issues, trying to solve the mystery with him. As you are introduced, you go, oh, this character's a good guy. Couple scenes later, you're like, oh, wait, no, I think they're a bad guy. And so on and so forth. Oh, I think that person is lying to him. Oh, no, they were telling the truth. That is one instance of an unreliable narrator that I enjoy, but it's the only one I can think of.
I do think there are bad examples of this that I have seen, especially when people don't get creative with the shifting realities kind of thing, where they say, oh, anything could be true. This is a shifting reality. And then they just do the most inane nonsense with it. And not in this is your brain, when your brain's hyperactive and it's just thinking about a bunch of things, but like, just boring stuff.
Okay.
Like, yeah, with this, at least it was interesting because, yeah, all of a sudden he was a spaceman. And you're like, okay, this is somewhere. This happened. But, yeah, I do agree. Memento's a good movie, though.
I can think of another movie with an unreliable narrator that I like. Fight Club.
You like some concerning movies.
It's a good movie, man.
Is it?
Yes.
I have not seen it, so I cannot say, which makes me less of a film bro than you.
I know. Does it make me more of a film bro that I have seen that movie more than once?
Yes.
Okay.
You have a poster of it in our bedroom.
I do not.
Yes, she does. You cannot prove that she doesn't.
I'm just going to move on.
One of the things I wanted to talk about with this is kind of going back to Moon Knight having these multiple secret identities because he's insane, so he has multiple personalities. I feel like insane isn't the word I should be using.
Isn't it like dissociative identity disorder?
Yeah.
DID?
I believe you're right.
That's what they said in the comic book.
Cool. DID. So he has DID.
Split personalities, multiple personalities,
multiple
whatever.
Personalities. Because it's been a while, but I do remember reading some of the original Moon Knight comics. I know I've talked to you about this before, but as a kid, the library used to have these giant collections of Marvel comics called Marvel Essentials, and they were all in black and white, and I read so many of them as a kid. But in the originals, Moon Knight was not he was not crazy. He did not have a personality disorder. He had basically 3 separate secret identities that each had their own purpose. He had the Stephen Grant, which was the billionaire playboy, because Moon Knight started out as basically just a Batman ripoff.
Okay.
Caped Crusader of the Night with a vengeance. Oh, he's slightly more violent than the good guys.
He wears white instead of black.
It's Batman. This is Batman.
No. That's the Dark Knight. This is the White Knight. Sorry, the Moon Knight.
Sorry. So he has these separate secret identities that each serve a purpose. The billionaire playboy and Stephen Grant. You had Jake Lockley, who was he was this taxi driver who was his ear to the ground, the streetwise kind of one. Mm-hmm. And then Mark Spector, who was this ex-mercenary, essentially. And then all under the Caped Crusader of Moon Knight. But what I think has happened is it's become such an interesting take on the secret identity, where instead of these secret identities being either A, a tool for him to use, or B, a defense mechanism, mm-hmm. these identities are stuck to him. He does not have a choice in having these identities. Mm-hmm. They are a part of him. Beyond, like, Spider-Man having Aunt May and Mary Jane and human connections, he is stuck with these other guys for the rest of time, as far as he knows. Yeah. And they just happen to be in the same body. And I think that's such a cool take on secret identities.
Like, it's 4 different guys, 3 different guys.
They don't have a choice. They get to be together. It's not because they feel a sense of responsibility to each other because Uncle Ben died, but just because they have to. I think it's interesting. I think it's a very unique take on secret identities that is not done in comic books a lot.
This is my first time seeing something like that.
Yeah, this is your first time reading a comic book, actually.
No, it's not. I've read a few. I've read a Wonder Woman one and Old Man Logan.
I haven't read that.
Probably a few others. Probably. I think I might have read like The Killing Joke or something. Watchmen, you know.
I'm a bad comic book fan. I haven't read a lot of comics.
That's okay.
I've read Blackest Night. It's a terrible Green Lantern storyline. It's very bad.
Okay.
But it happened. I've also read Crisis on Infinite Earths.
I have no idea who that's about.
It's a DC one, and it's also notoriously bad. Fight me.
I feel like the ones I have read are specifically because they represent like the best of the genre, and I'm trying to understand.
There's a lot of bad ones out there in comic books, just like in every genre, as we have discovered over the course of doing this podcast.
It's part of it. It's part of it.
Do you have any final thoughts?
For as much as I didn't like the shifting realities and the unreliable narrator, I think this is an exceptional comic book. Mm-hmm. The art was great and very emotive. And while I still do not have a solid grasp on what really happened, I enjoyed it a lot. What about you?
Maybe none of it. Maybe all of it. Who knows? I adored it. Nobody's surprised. This is 100% my
So you should read this if you want a unique superhero origin story that doesn't involve billions of dollars, a venomous spider, or gamma radiation.
You also should read this if the shifting sands of reality sounds exciting.
And last but not least, you should read this book if you want a comic book that feels like an A24 movie.
It really does. Mm-hmm. And you should not read this book if you like having a firm grasp on reality at all times.
Case in point, right here. You also should not read this book if you just want season 2 of Moon Knight, the Disney show, because this is not that.
It is not. We did not mention the adaptation a single time.
I've seen it.
Yeah, me too.
I don't remember a whole lot about it.
It was okay. A lot of the show was inspired by the Lemire runs of Moon Knight. I don't know if it was this one specifically. And lastly, you should not read this if you want a straightforward good versus evil fight. There is a few twists and turns in here over who is the good guys and who is the bad guys. But there's not really a moral stance in this book. Mm-mm. It is entirely from the perspective of Mark Spector / Jake Lockley / Stephen Grant / Moon Knight.
Just trying to figure it all out.
That's really it. Is he the good guy? Is he not? Who knows?
Or what even is happening?
Fair. I understood it.
I'm glad.
You just need to open your third eye.
It's going to remain firmly closed.
Have you found any shinies along the way? Any shinies for moi?
Yes.
Little shinies.
You gotta stop.
This is the section of our show where we talk about various things that we have read, watched, listened to. Basically anything we want to talk about that isn't a book. Or it could be a book.
I was gonna say.
That is not a scheduled book.
So I would love to shout out the HBO show Station 11. It is based on a book by, I believe it's Emily St. Mandel. Came out in like 2014, 2017, something like that. And it was made into a show by HBO within the last 3 years or so. It is thus far a really good adaptation. First up, if you have not read the book or seen anything about the show, it's about a post-pandemic America following a traveling theater group that performs Shakespeare and their conflict with a cult.
Nice. Have you read the book?
Yes.
Okay. Is the book good?
Yes.
Should I read the book?
You should read the book. It is excellent. And again, the show is really good. Very well acted. I'm enjoying it immensely.
Oh, yeah. It's like post-apocalyptic, right? Did you say that?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Post-pandemic.
Oh, post-pandemic. That's what you said.
The Wi-Fi is gone. There are no airplanes.
No!
Yeah.
God, how are people going to listen to our podcast?
What's interesting to me is reading that book post COVID-19. Yes, post COVID-19 and realizing that it was written before that. And I realize that feels weird to me, but also there have been other pandemics in the world.
But that's still a really weird thing post-pandemic.
Yes.
And reading or watching things made especially something that is about a pandemic or some catastrophic thing. Like the post-apocalypse media, it feels weird now. It feels a little weird and a little too real. Mm-hmm. But I think that's similar to, I know I've talked about Death Stranding with you, where there are that's a video game by Hideo Kojima. That's not my shiny this week. But it is that it takes place after basically where people had to quarantine and be away from each other and isolated. And there's a lot of that where it's like, oh, we saw this. Mm-hmm. Oh, we knew what was going to happen. Yeah. Not in a bad way, but just the human reaction to being isolated like that. Mm-hmm. I just think it's interesting. But my shiny this month is The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin. Ooh. I am still reading that book. I believe I talked about this book. I am struggling. It's a science fiction book about a person from basically these twin planets where one is an anarchist utopia and one of them is a capitalist society, which I think it's quote-unquote utopian, but about somebody from the anarchist planet going to the capitalist planet. Okay. There's a lot in the book. It's very deep, very heady sci-fi. Yeah. I have so many problems with it, though, because... Like what? So it was written in the 70s. Okay. Which makes sense with this whole kind of hippie anarchist ideals. But the problem with science fiction from that era is it's so damn clinical. There is not a voice to it. And we are reading one of her novels later this year. Mm-hmm. I'm less excited for it now.
You don't have to say that. We can switch it up.
No, we're doing it. Okay. I want to read it. It's very deep and very thoughtful. I am thinking about stuff every page, which is part of why it's taking me a while to get through it. Yeah. But the main reason is that it switches timelines where you follow the main character, Shevek, on the capitalist planet. Yeah. As he is traveling there and his experiences there. And then we also follow him on the anarchist planet basically as he's growing up. The names are so similar and the voices, because everybody just talks in this bloviated philosophical nonsense about everything. Mm-hmm. And they also talk about physics, and it's nonsense physics. I don't think it's real physics. And it's so hard to follow when things are happening and where you are. And there's so many times I've even forgotten which planet is which by names many times because a lot of the names are all similar. Okay. Because they don't have a flow. They're just sci-fi. And as much as I love it, as much as I am loving the philosophy and the thoughts and how thought-provoking it is, I want to strangle her.
I feel like what you are frustrated with is very common from sci-fi in that era.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm thinking, I have felt the same reading Heinlein, Asimov, right? Even Frank Herbert to an extent where, oh my gosh, I'm thinking so hard on every page. Also, why is every single character a cardboard cutout? They are all interchangeable. No one has a voice. This is just a philosophical exercise that you put fantasy sci-fi names to.
At least with like Frank Herbert and Dune in that series. Yes, there is a lot of philosophy in that. It's not pushed in your face necessarily.
That's perhaps a poor example. But I'm thinking more how you are describing your feelings about The Dispossessed is how I felt reading Foundation.
I totally it's exactly that. It is, we are here to say a point, and we are only saying the point. That is it. We are science fiction. We are not fantasy. We are not allowed to have joy in our lives.
Yes.
But I do think the difference with Dune, I think Dune does have that very clinical narration and very dry narration. But with Dune, you are grasping for parts of this world at every moment you can get, because you're just thrown in there. There's not a lot of huge exposition in Dune. So yeah, it is that. It's like, okay, but I'm still finding out new things. Whereas with like Isaac Asimov and with Ursula K. Le Guin in The Dispossessed, at least, it is that, no, I'm here to say philosophy. We're talking philosophy, baby, and only philosophy. It just happens to be about robots. Also read iRobot. That's a great book.
I loved iRobot. Thought I would love Foundation. That is not true. iRobot is different than Foundation.
I think I read the first 3 Foundations before I gave up. It's rough.
I finished the first one and I'm never continuing it.
I think we talked about this during was it the last Campfire Stories?
Perhaps.
Talking about like the lyrical nature of narration. And it's just, it is so nice that I think in more modern sci-fi, they are understanding that no, this is sci-fi and fantasy are the same thing. Like, we're both trying to communicate ideas and be stupidly philosophical for no reason.
We're exploring ideas through a story.
As you should, because it's fun. Thank you for joining us on our journey of 1,000 pages. If you enjoyed this, hey, leave a review. Also, we're on YouTube now, so you can leave comments. We want to know things, what you thought about the book.
Yes, please tell us.
Please tell us we're idiots. If you think we're idiots, I will fight you in the comments. I yearn for verbal combat.
It's okay. You can think what you'd like.
That's true. Anyways, what are we reading next month?
Next month, we are reading a cozy fantasy. And we chose one that has topped bestseller lists. I'm sure you've heard of it if you read any fantasy at all. And that is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. It is about a mercenary orc who lays down her sword to open a coffee shop in a little town that has never heard of coffee.
I'm so excited for this one. I've already read the first chapter. For the first time, I have read the book before the day of.
I am also looking forward to this. I think every person that I know who has read this has enjoyed it immensely and highly recommends it. So join us next month.
Bye-bye.
Bye.